Hello there, dear viewer, and welcome to the latest video on my channel. I know it's been a while since I did one. I just not really felt the need to do one. I'm just doing these as a fun little hobby to sort of go through my collection and give my thoughts on them afterwards. I've watched a lot of films, don't get me wrong, and I've listened to a lot of music, but I really enjoyed doing the Hellraiser film, and I haven't really been binge watching any franchises since then. It's a fun thing to do. It all started back in 2020 when I had a broken bone in my wrist. So I couldn't actually do much. And the lockdowns were happening, so I couldn't go out. So I could just watch TV. I could sort of play games, but it was a bit difficult. And then one Friday afternoon, my cast had come off, so I had to do all these wrist exercises, not fun. And I just saw that Friday the 13th was on streaming on Prime, and I thought, oh yeah, I haven't seen that film in ages. So I watched it, the original, and still as good as it was when I first watched it whenever. And then I saw the others were on streaming as well, and I thought, I haven't actually seen those before. So I just sat there all day and I watched, I think about 5 or 6 of them, and then the following day I did a few more and just chipped away at it. It was really great fun. It was so fun doing a deep dive into that franchise, and I've done that a few times since then. You know, Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, and it's been I quite like experiencing horror franchises this way, going on like a journey and seeing how the films develop and change over the years. So after Hellraiser, that kind of fell by the wayside because these franchises are big. You know, it's some of them take a while to do. And then I had a week off a few weeks back, and I, again, just spontaneously rewatched my favourite ever horror film, which is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And again, I just suddenly thought, it's time. And I just started binge watching all the other films. I've got a few of them on DVD down here, and I've had them for ages, but never really fully got around to them. And so it was really cool to experience this franchise, and definitely a very, very odd franchise, even for horror films. This one is very odd indeed. So join me now, dear viewer, as we do a deep dive into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So of course we're going to start with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I absolutely love this cover art on this Blu-ray because, you know, I don't want to knock it. I never really liked the original poster. I don't know if it's the fact it's predominantly white or what, but it just doesn't excite me. And I can't tell you why, but I just never really got into it. And there's a few films like that. Carrie's another one. I don't like the original poster for that. So now that all of these films are getting like re-releases from Criterion Collection and Arrow and all that, I'm really glad that they're getting sort of new covers or posters and all that. I think some of them, they are better than the original. Controversial, I know. However, I first saw this film, back in, I want to say like mid-2000s, and I hadn't seen many horror films. I think I saw like Halloween and The Thing and a few others, but I was like really new to horror films. And something about this one just really sucked me in, and I that's the thing. I had this problem when I was reviewing it on Letterboxd, in that I've seen this film about like at least 10 times. I love this film. As I say, it's my favourite ever horror film. But then I'm just sat there and just thinking, well, why do I like it so much? I can't really put my thoughts into words other than, that's my favourite. And I wonder if other people have that problem. Who knows? You see, now there's me getting stuck on the words again. But this tells a very simple story of 5 teenagers, 2 siblings and their friends, who go to Texas because of a spate of grave robbings. They're worried that their granddad's grave has been desecrated, and so they want to check up on it. And then on the way home, they run out of petrol, go to visit an old family house, wander away from the house, and fall afoul of a group of cannibals. Well, we've all been there, haven't we? And this is just such an incredible film. I think what I liked about it first was the fact that it was set like during the day, because a lot of the horror films I'd seen up until that point had been mostly nighttime. Nightmare on Elm Street, that's very nighttime. You know what I mean by that. And I remember because before I saw the film, I watched a documentary about the film, because I think it was like not 20th, like 30th anniversary of the film. So that make about 2004 that I saw it, something like that. And I had a little documentary, and some of the imagery that they were showing I found really striking. And one of the imageries, and it's still like, I still find it quite striking now, is the shot of Jerry walking up to the Sawyer household, and he's like silhouetted against the sun, the setting sun. And I just I found that just so striking. And then of course you've got the interior of the Sawyer household with its really avant-garde bones and other things from previous victims, which is kind of elevated to an art form. And it's such like a juxtaposition, because you've got all this weird stuff in the Sawyer household, including Leatherface with his outfits and different masks and that reflects his different personalities. But at the same time, the film footage is like really low quality because it's low budget, and I really like low budget films. And it just adds like this raw intensity to the whole thing. That's the best way I can describe it. It's all proper grainy, and it just looks like home movies, just with the sort of naturalistic acting between the teenagers when they're on their own. It just feels like normal. Then they meet the hitchhiker, and he's all quirky, and then of course when they meet Leatherface, it definitely becomes a horror film then. And like coupled with that is that there's very little music in the film. Instead, it has like this industrial droning sound, which I believe is meant to represent or symbolize what an animal would hear in a slaughterhouse, which is certainly not a pleasant thing. And it just kind of all combines together to make for like a really unique experience. Like for example, Leatherface's first appearance, Kirk walks up to the house. It's a beautiful summer's day. You can hear the rumble of the generator in the background. He plays a prank on Pam, and then he walks in. Leatherface appears and bludgeons him with a mallet, and the whole thing happens with like a natural ambience, and it just feels so like not dreamlike, but it just takes you a second or two to register what you're seeing, and then Leatherface slams the door. And it reverberates into the industrial sound. And it's just a great way. It's like the film is saying to you, yep, that just happened. I absolutely love that effect. That's probably another striking bit, quite literally, of the film for me. It's just how all of these things combine to create such a unique whoa that you don't normally get in horror films. And again, a similar thing happens at the end of the film, where Leatherface is just dancing with his chainsaw against the rising sun, and then it's just such a striking image, and then it just cuts to black with no proper ending as such. It just suddenly stops, and again the film is like saying, yeah, that was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's really, really incredible how it does that. It sort of has this raw intensity to it all. The poor quality footage, or the lower grade quality footage, I should say, combined with all the nasty stuff you see in front of you, like with the dinner table scene where Sally's screaming her head off and they're all getting in her face and everything. It's unsettling. And it just feels like so real, even though it gets incredibly hammy and over the top as it goes along. It just feels like it's really happening, and even with like the advent of like found footage horror and all that, I think I don't really get that feeling of whoa, this is actually happening when I watch those. But with Texas Chainsaw, the original, I do get that feeling, and I guess it's horror, but in like such a unique way, and that's why it's my favourite. And also in simpler terms, that I can talk about this film and gush about how much I love it, and then right after I've done all that, I just want to go and watch it again. And I think that's a good reason to call it a favourite, when you finish watching it and you're just like, yeah, let's watch that again. Let's do it again. I think that's a good reason to call it a favourite film. So yeah, that's the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's got everything, it's got like such a sort of intense, growing intensity and atmosphere. A feeling of dread as you know what's coming and everything, or something's off. I always liked that effect of the whole walking into the lion's den. And you, the viewer, have kind of cottoned on that there's somewhere they shouldn't be. You don't know what's there yet, but you know something's there. But they're all acting completely normal, like, it's not a bad place. But you just know something's going to happen, and it's just that low feeling of dread that, that low feeling of dread that you can't handle. That's what the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sort of runs on, and petrol. And if you want another film with a great example of that is Damnation Alley, when they arrive at this deserted shopping mall. Or was it a car park? It was both, probably. And they're thinking, it looks all normal. And those bodies are like being picked clean, though. It's just skeletons. What's going on? And then they're going around, and you get the feeling that something's coming, and then something does happen, and I'm not going to spoil it, but those of you who've seen the film will know what I mean, and it's really nasty what happens, but it's such a cool build-up to what is going to happen. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre manages to achieve that brilliantly. It also gets really funny at times. Like when the Sawyers are fully introduced, and they start bickering amongst themselves and doing silly things, it gets like really hammy and over the top. It still feels kind of real, is the bizarre thing. But it's also, kind of funny in places as well. And oddly enough, they get more development than the actual teenagers who you're supposed to be rooting for. But they really do feel like this weird, dysfunctional family. Really incredible. And the sequels do their best to top it. They do their best to ape it, which I don't think is the right way to go, but we'll discuss that in a bit. But yeah, none of them top the original for me. That is, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You are my favourite ever horror film. Well done. Now it's time to look at the sequels, and they are a very mixed bag. This whole franchise is a little unusual actually, because it's the only franchise I've encountered where the sequels are like actively shouldering each other out of the way. Because of course when it comes to franchises and a strong franchise, you've got sequels, you've got prequels, you've got midquels, you've got spin-offs, you've got TV shows, you've got books, comics, etc. Texas Chainsaw is the only one where each next installment is saying like, no, I'm the true sequel to the original, ignore the others. Like every entry gets like immediately decanonized the minute it appears. It's very strange. However, I still wanted to watch them, so I went on Amazon and bought myself a whole ton of the DVDs. And first up, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Now, this is actually quite peculiar because whereas the original is like a very gritty, horrific film that I don't know if it did actually, but you'd expect to see it on the Video Nasties list when they compiled that. Unlike that film, this one is actually on the other end of the spectrum. And this is the kind of film you see on a late movie night marathon with the likes of Chopping Mall and the Serenity Babes at the Slime Bowl-orama. I think that's what it's called. Because like the gore is ramped up, the comedy is ramped up. It's a really hammy and ridiculous film. It's hard to believe that it was also directed by Tobe Hooper, who did the original. He came back for this one. But I think he was onto something there because sometimes, when you want a sequel, you do want like more of the same of the previous film because you enjoyed it so much. But with something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's like a very sparse and low-key film that if you were to try and copy it, you'd probably just get, or ape it, I should say, you would just get the same film again. So I don't blame him at all for changing the styles to suit what was going on at the time. And it's a really fun film, very wild ride. And I had such an odyssey to get this film because I ordered them all from Amazon and I was very happy with it. And I decided, right, now's the time to watch the sequels. So I fired it up, my DVD player, stuck it in, got comfy on the sofa, and it didn't work because it was region locked. So I hadn't paid attention to what I was buying off Amazon, basically. And then, if I remember correctly, I then went to a charity shop and saw it in there. And I was like, whoa, score, very lucky. So I bought it, got it home, fired it up, and I was thinking, it looks very familiar. It was the first film again. The box had the first film inside of it. So then I just went back on Amazon, ordered another copy, paid attention to the specs this time, finally got it, and I was able to watch it. And I enjoyed it a lot. It's a wild ride of a film. And very, very hammy. The Sawyers are as hammy as they were in the original, and it's like the rest of the film is like trying to keep up with them in terms of just how over the top everything is. You've got a very vengeful Dennis Hopper out for revenge, obviously, on a long journey. I mean, that's kind of what I did. I went on a long journey to find this film, only I didn't really have to leave the house and walk very far. It didn't take me years, and I didn't bring any chainsaws with me. And then you've also got Stretch, played by Carolyn Williams, who is like the final girl of this film. And she's like a radio DJ who accidentally gets roped into the whole thing. And she wants to like escape from it and do more serious news stuff. But Carolyn Williams plays a DJ really well. Like, I could watch a whole film of just her at a DJ desk playing like hard rock and heavy metal. She's really good at it. And then... goodness, I've forgotten his name now, but the chap who plays Leatherface is really good. Nails his like the vulnerability of the character and the mental handicaps as well as his viciousness, and it gives him plenty of comedy as well. And last but not least, however, we have Bill Moseley making his film debut in this as Chop Top Sawyer, and he's easily the best thing of this film. He is having an absolute blast playing the role, and it's actually quite infectious. I was always laughing my head off whenever he was on screen and bickering with Leatherface and everything. And so it ramps everything up to 11 and kind of throws what made the original so special out of the window. But, you know, if you like trashy, silly horror, then you can't go wrong with this. I really enjoyed it. Okay, and now it's time for the next film, which is rather imaginatively called Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Why it's called Leatherface, I have no idea at all, because, I mean, of course, Leatherface is the face of the franchise, the Leatherface of the franchise, but he's hardly, like, the main character of these films. Like, he's basically just one of the villains, and because he's mentally handicapped, that basically means his family does all the talking and the planning, so he's basically just the muscle. But his distinctive appearance and, of course, the chainsaw, very eye-catching right from the get-go. So, yeah, that's why they went for it. And with this film, I don't think it's a bad film, but it's frustrating because when you watch it, all of the actors are trying their hardest. You got people like Viggo Mortensen playing the main villain, one of the main villains, Tex. And all of the other Sawyers in this film have got rather the quirky nature. You got the woman with the voice box, and you got Tinker with the mechanical arm. And yeah, there's just so much going on here that just keeps getting forgotten about. You've also got Ken Foree from Dawn of the Dead, as like a crazy survivalist who runs afoul of the Sawyers. And you'd think that would be like a really cool different dimension to this thing, to stop it from being just a retread of the original. Like, the two main characters, the teenagers, they both crash their car and get caught by the Sawyers, so standard stuff. But then you got Ken Foree with like a van full of guns, so you'd think it would be like something so different. Like, imagine like a gun-toting, really paranoid guy going up against the Sawyers. And that does happen, but only for like 5 seconds. And yeah, very disappointing in that regard. Like, you can see that there's so much originality in this film, and that the actors are trying their absolute hardest to give it a go. But in the end, it's just like a runaround of the original film, and not as good. I'm really disappointed by that. Apparently, there's like a comic that it's a comic adaptation, I should say, that fixes all of these errors and makes things a bit more lively, and apparently a lot of people liked it. I've not read it. I'm kind of tempted to, because it's just all sorts of things. Like, it comes up with new concepts and new characters, and then almost immediately gets rid of them. And the ending in this is a complete cheat. Like, Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about this one. It's a fun for what it is horror film. Something you'd probably catch on TV. Not in a horror movie marathon. It's not of cheesy horror. It's not quite up there. But yeah, it's a shame. It does however, have a really cool chainsaw. But at the end of the day, that sums it up really well, actually, in that it's got a really cool chainsaw. But at the end of the day, it's still just a chainsaw. So, now it's time for the fourth film in the franchise, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. Oh my god, this movie. Now, whereas the other films sort of say, yes, we're the sequel to the original, ignore the previous one, this one goes the extra mile. It's once again a sequel to the original film that ignores the others, but then it's basically like a do-over of the original film at the same time. Like, the plot is pretty much the same beat for beat, just with a few tweaks here and there. It's basically more of like an ashcan remake of the original film, except with also being a sequel. So Leatherface seems to be getting a sense of deja vu when it comes to this film. And yes, that's Matthew McConaughey and Reese Witherspoon on it. They're both really good in this film. Despite what they say now, they look like they're having fun making it. And weirdly enough, that girl on the front cover of the chainsaw never appears in the film. It's bizarre. I don't even know. I'm not even sure who that's supposed to be, actually. So this film is an odd one. It takes place like over the span of one night, and of course the other films are all sort of short-paced films as well. But this one, a single night is fast even for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, and it's got this weird cozy feel to it actually, in that it has a very secluded feel. So the characters, they wander off into the woods to search for something, and they break down and get lost and separated, and they accidentally come across the Sawyer household while they're looking around. But like, it's so quiet in the forest, it's almost kind of cozy. Even though like Reese Witherspoon meets like a lot of unusual characters and people, but yeah, the whole thing just feels really cozy. And then of course they get to the Sawyer household, and things just go downhill from there. But after that, everything just becomes like weirdly exaggerated from the first film. So Leatherface, all of his kills are like from the original film. They're just do-overs from that. And no one actually gets chainsawed. I think it's the first film of the franchise where nobody actually gets chainsawed, which is very silly. And he screams a lot in this film. Which he did in the other films, but this one like ramps it up. So he, like as I said, exaggerated. And of course, he had some like effeminate traits before in the previous films, because he liked to put makeup on his masks to sort of determine his identity. And this case, however, he goes like even further the whole hog, and he has like a woman suit that he puts on and wears, and you see like a sort of Buffalo Bill-esque sequence where he's putting on the suit and makeup, and it's very bizarre. And like, they're not even cannibals this time, they just eat pizza, which is very peculiar. And then of course you've got the whole sort of apathetic citizens, which you always get in horror films, where they just scream and run away. And in this case, they see weird stuff happen and they just don't give a shit. They just watch it and be like, oh yeah, that's cool, that's going on, yeah, cool. And then you've got a weird conspiracy going on that the Sawyers apparently are involved with. Like, don't look too deeply into this film. It's an odd one. Directed by Kim Henkel, who wrote the original with Tobe Hooper. So you'd think having him back would be like, yeah, fantastic, cool, brilliant. One of the OG people again. We're going to get a proper good quality Texas Chainsaw film. But no, this is like bottom of the barrel. This is like the worst one in my opinion. And yeah, I still kind of liked it. Again, I like the coziness at the start of it. That's a cool DVD cover, I guess, but I'm digressing. I did like the film. It's the kind of film you watch in the dead of night when you're tired, let's put it that way. Both Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger, they're both very entertaining in it, and there are some funny moments. But it's a very surreal experience watching this film. So watch it once just for that, I guess. But yeah, this one is definitely a bit of a dud, shall we say. Okay, so now that we've done that, that's the end of the original continuity for the time being. And now we've got the next film, which is the remake. Oh my goodness, that's a really heavy DVD. The remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. I first saw this back in the mid-2000s. I think I watched the original, and then I just happened to find the remake on DVD, so I bought that and I watched it. And at the time, I didn't like it. I thought it was a decent enough remake, but it was very shallow at the same time, and didn't really have the spark and creativity of the original that made the original stand out so much to me. But rewatching it during this marathon, especially like right after watching 3 and 4, I liked it a lot more the second time round. I'll happily say that. I thought it was pretty impressive what they did and how they made it. I still think my shallow criticism is true, invalid. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But for the most part, yeah, this is a solid entry. In fact, I honestly think that the turn of the century actually saw a rise in quality of this franchise. And those of you who've seen the later films that came after this are going to be a bit, you what, at me. But I honestly do think that. So this is again about 5 teenagers going to a Leonard Skinner concert, and then they break down, run afoul of the Hewitt family. Not the Sawyers this time, the Hewitt family. Oh, there, I forgot to mention that. In Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, with the whole exaggeration thing, instead of the Sawyers, they're called the Slaughters. Yeah. Anyway, so we have got the remake here, and the 5 teenagers, they were all pretty fun, and some of the deaths did actually get under my skin. There's a bit with like fingernails, and then another bit with like putting salt on a wound. Oh no, I felt really bad for the guy in those scenes. And Leatherface is really cool. He's gone back to sort of swapping masks, which he didn't do so much in the sequels. And he looks very creepy. He's very intimidating as well, actually, in this film. It's the first time in a while that I actually got jump scared by him while watching it. And you've also got Arlie Ermey as Sheriff Hoyt, one of the Hewitts, and he's very entertaining and also just a little bit creepy. I'll give him that. He suits horror really well. I would never have thought of him as a horror movie actor, but yeah, he's pretty good in this. And I still think my shallow remake criticism is valid because it's not actually mentioned that they're cannibals in this film. They're just capturing people and killing them for the sake of it, and it's never actually explained that they're doing it to survive, which is how it all started. And also, the entire film is told from the perspective of like Erin, the main girl, and her friends. So there's no scenes of the Sawyers really interacting as a family. So you don't really get that bond or the bickering or the depth that they have in the other films. It's all just like Erin gets dragged to the house. Oh, there's the Sawyers, the Hewitts, I should say, sorry. And then she escapes. It's a very sort of more of a chase film. And those are good as well. But yeah, it's missing the depth of the original film. That's what I say. Just surface level horror film that you'd get in films of that era when people were just remaking old horror movies like House on Haunted Hill and House of Wax and all other sorts. But to be fair, I really like those films, so I shouldn't be knocking them. And they are also, my chair is squeaking, those two films are also very different from the originals as well. So again, not the best example, but you kind of get what I mean. Horror was very popular in the 2000s, like the angry, aggressive kind of horror. And this basically fits the bill. The other thing I like about this film is the locations they go to, because at the time I thought, yeah, it looks fine. The Sawyers' house is the Hewitt's house. I'm going to keep doing that. The Hewitt's house is nice and tidy and clean, unlike the original. But since watching this film in the 20 years since, I've really fallen in love with like abandoned building imagery, and there's lots of that in this. And so, yeah, it ticked all the boxes. I was quite surprised actually that I was enjoying it more than I thought I was. So, yeah, I think there's an upturn in quality starting with this film. So now that we have got the remake out of the way, it's time to put that aside and go on to its prequel, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the begin... Oh, where is it? Oh yes, of course. I don't actually have that one on DVD because as the years have gone by and streaming has got more popular, I'm kind of happy just watching them on there, especially if I don't like the film. You buy a DVD. This has happened to me a lot. You buy the DVD on a whim, get it home, and it's a bit naff. But I shall put the title at the bottom here so that you can see it. Thanks, me. Well done. So, this is basically, as I said, a prequel to the remake, featuring how the Hewitts. Why can't I say that? Hewitts. The Hewitts. Basically showing how they came to be cannibals. It says it's going to be. That's kind of like taken over in like the first 10, 15 minutes. Now, normally, I really, really, really don't like prequels like this. When it's like a villain's origins, and especially if it's like a really unpleasant villain, it's just basically just going to be like a whole film of like trying to justify their actions, and then also with them getting away with everything because otherwise the first film can't happen. I just find those really unpleasant to watch, and I just don't enjoy them. Or so I thought, and then I watched the beginning, and yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was an incredible, well-made film. It completely caught me off guard just how much I enjoyed it. It's a lot more brutal than the remake, actually. Like at the start of the film, the teenagers like hit a cow and the whole thing just explodes, and there's like a lot more gore and violence. It's really unpleasant film, and of course the Hewitts do have their plot armor on tight, so that's a downside to it. But then at the same time, I am a huge fan of mood lighting in films. So watching that film, and you see like Arleonia Chef Hoyt, just seeing him coming out of the darkness and like a sepia tinged light is like, whoa, really, really cool with how they did that. I would have enjoyed it, I think, a lot more if it would have been a more sort of upbeat ending for the protagonists. Because really it's a complete cheat what happens, which is the most disappointing thing. Because again, it's a prequel, so they can't do too much because otherwise the first film can't exist. But it's definitely worth a look. There's some other cool stuff that happens, like there's a biker gang who are very vengeful, and a few other ideas which were, again, they sort of threaten to sort of shake things up and have a more interesting take on things. But again, because it's a prequel, they've got to fail. And yeah, that does get kind of annoying. So it's shot really well, but story-wise, it could have been better. So that brings the remake's timeline to an end, just as I was getting into it as well. And we're going to move on now to the next film in the series, The Texas Chainsaw 3D, which is the weirdest title, I think, for any horror film I've ever watched. And if you're wondering why I'm holding the DVD like this, it's because when I ordered it, it came with a very helpful rental copy printed at the top. So now I just feel silly whenever I take it off the shelf. In fairness, I didn't know it was going to turn up like that. But yeah. So this one goes the extra mile in connecting itself to the original film with a lot of fan baiting. So the first 15 or so minutes has like a sort of archive footage of the original and also recreated. This is kind of weird actually, because whenever you see the cook played by Jim Sydow from the original, whenever you see him in this film, the footage isn't actually him. It's Bill Moseley who came back to the franchise for this film. He plays Drayton Sawyer, the cook, in new footage. And whenever you see like old footage of the original film involving the cook, they refilmed it with Jim Sydow. It's really weird. I can't really explain it, but like, if go and watch the original film like 10 times like I've done, and then watch this and you'll see what I mean. It's really jarring. I'm assuming they couldn't get permission to use Jim Sydow's footage for this film, but a very strange way of going about it. Anyway, aside from that, this follows on directly from the very end of the first film. It explains what happened to the Sawyers. Going back to the fan baiting, there's suddenly a lot more Sawyers than there was in the original. And one of them is Gunnar Hansen, so that's really cool to see him again. And John Dugan, who played Grandpa in the original, he's back behind the mask, in the makeup, playing Grandpa. None of them really last the first 15 minutes or so, which is a shame. Kind of almost makes you feel bad for the Sawyers. as mad as it sounds, but yeah. I should also point out that I've got pretty strong feelings about this film, or theories and stuff I just want to get off my chest. And I'm going to talk about spoilers. So if you want to avoid spoilers, just fast forwards to the next film, please. But I actually do like this film, as mad as it sounds. It's probably the oddest of the bunch of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, but I really liked it. So after revealing what happens to the Sawyers after the end of the first film, it jumps forward to the main lady, Heather, who is struggling to connect with her parents and then finds out she's adopted after her grandmother dies, and she inherits all of the stuff. So she and her friends all grab their stuff and they drive out to Texas to go and investigate the family home. Doesn't that sound familiar? Interestingly, it kind of like flips a lot of the stuff from the original on its head. So there's an enigmatic hitchhiker they pick up, but he's introduced being run over rather than it ending with him being run over. And then all of the Leatherface chases happening sort of crowded areas. So that's pretty interesting. And you almost actually do feel bad for Leatherface in this film. Because yes, of course, he survived. He's still somehow alive and living in the basement of the house. Like I said, this is a really, really weird film. Even weirder when Heather finds out she's a Sawyer. So Leatherface is her, like, great uncle or her uncle. I'm not sure. But, yeah, this is a very, very peculiar film. And it's got strong ties with themes, I should say, of family ties and feelings of alienation. Because Heather just can't really connect with anyone. Because all of her... again, this is a massive spoiler. Her boyfriend and her best friend are sleeping with each other, and a lot of the people she meets in this film are really two-faced, and of course her parents she struggles to get on with because she's adopted. And this is all sort of to make it a bit more sense, or be understandable, because when it gets to the end of the film, she ends up becoming Leatherface's caretaker, which is... what? But yeah, it's very odd, this film. But you can kind of understand why she's going to side with the Sawyers at the end, because everything, blood is thicker than water, and everyone else just kind of screws her over and isn't really her friend. And the thing is, problem I have with this film is that a lot of this alienation stuff she doesn't actually find out about. And I think if she'd known about it, it'd be more understandable about why she ends up going back to her family origins, because she can't have a connection with anyone. So yeah, it's a shame they didn't go down that route. And also, just to make it a bit more of a smoother transition, the cannibalism side of things isn't really mentioned, or it is there, but it's kind of said in a way so that she never quite finds out about it, because otherwise that'd be a bit weird that she chooses to go with the Sawyers, because it's not weird already. But as mad as it sounds, though, I do like this film a lot. It's probably my third favourite after the first two, simply because it gets like the core concept of the original and everything, but it does its own thing with it. It's not just like aping the original and copying it. It's just got new ideas and it's bringing them to the table. And yeah, a lot of it is a bit dubious and you have to suspend your disbelief for quite a bit, but it's really well made. Like the kills are good, the chases are good, and it's well acted and everything. So yeah, Texas Chainsaw 3D, you won me over. You're a very, very strange film, but I like you. So following on from that, we have, I'm going to pull this one up again, the prequel to the original that they did after Texas Chainsaw 3D. We have Leatherface, very creative title. And this is about a breakout at a mental hospital for troubled teenagers, and four of them basically go on the run with a nurse, and it sparks off a big manhunt, and the four of them can't trust each other. The nurse is trying to escape, and it's a very bloody and violent rampage. Yeah, this is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. I read the premise before I watched the film, and yeah, no, that's not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. And then I watched it, and it is, basically, because one of the teenagers, shocker, ends up becoming Leatherface. Wait, sorry, you already knew that? Alright, fine. this is a weird film. I wouldn't even call it a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film because like the first 10, 15 minutes and the last 15 or so, they are a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film with the Sawyers trying to get Leatherface back. But the middle film, which is a good chunk of the film, is just basically like a violent crime horror film. And it's very loosely attached to the main film, and Leatherface's justification of becoming how he becomes Leatherface is kind of decently done. And you've also got Stephen Dorff playing a vengeful sheriff, so you've got that whole Dennis Hopper from the second film angle going on there. But this is a very weird mishmash. It just feels like two films very awkwardly stitched together. But credit where it's due, you know, the crime thriller stuff, that is well done. It's not very pleasant, but it is well done. And the actual Sawyer parts of the film are, yeah, they're pretty good as well, actually. It's very clumsily grafted together. And it kind of feels like what they did with the Halloween remake with Rob Zombie. I've got mixed feelings on that one as well because I don't think the two halves really gel together. But I'm going to save that for when I do my thoughts on Halloween video because I think I should do some more of these franchise stuff. It's quite fun. Overall, Leatherface is a decent film, but it's only, you have to kind of squint to see the Texas Chainsaw parts, and it doesn't really gel together. But it's not a bad film. And now, finally, we come on to the latest and most recent entry in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2022. Why do they have to give these all so many similar names? It really does my head in. So this one is on Netflix. Now, with this film, if you were to ask your layman, your typical casual movie watcher who doesn't know horror that well, what's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films about? And they would just say it's about some guy with a chainsaw chasing kids through the woods. And that's pretty much this film. The only active Sawyer is Leatherface. Once again, it's a sequel to the original. The fact he should be in his 70s by now is glossed over because he's an absolute powerhouse here. And sorry about the noisy chair. And the main characters are these influencers who are trying to buy a town in Texas to make it into an influencer haven where they can sell their stuff unopposed. So they all want to set up businesses there, free from prejudice or people hating on them. But you're selling stuff. How are you supposed to go out and buy it? Not everything there is internet friendly. I'm looking too deeply into that. It's basically just watching obnoxious people getting killed by Leatherface. It's also really hard to root for the influencers now because the main girl, I can't remember her name, but she has a real nasty attitude to everybody. And then all the locals you meet, they're really nice people. So it's they're just setting them up so that you cheer when Leatherface kills them, basically. And the bus scene is... Actually, the bus scene is probably the best part, purely for the "you try anything and you get cancelled" line, because that's just asking for trouble. But overall, this is just a generic chainsaw runaround. Leatherface is very creative with his chainsaw this time, which I can appreciate. And I didn't hate this film. I'm knocking on it quite a bit, but it's very well made. It's a really cool slasher thriller if you're into that kind of thing. Once again, the whole cannibalism thing is kind of glossed over, but at the end of the day, it's just a Texas Chainsaw film. There's plenty of films like that you can watch. Pieces, that's a chainsaw slasher, that's really good. This is an enjoyable film. I don't really have much to say on it. It's very surface level film. There's not really much depth to it. It tries to. It has some nice ideas, but ultimately, this is just a chainsaw runaround. And that's it. That is my thoughts on every single Texas Chainsaw Massacre film that there is. I don't think I've missed any. I hope not. And really, I could give a ranking, but let's just face it, this is always going to be the best one. I absolutely adore this film, and I always will. But going through all the sequels finally was a fun journey. I enjoyed them all more than I thought I would, even the ones with really bad reputations. And yeah, you know, films like The Next Generation or the Leatherface prequel, yeah, they are kind of naff, but I still had fun watching them, and there was still lots to enjoy. And ultimately, especially in the case of the Leatherface film, they're still well made. It's just to what end? In the end, though, stick with the original if nothing else. Thank you, have a good evening and a good day, and I shall see you all in the next video. Goodbye.